I had never imagined that my relationship with my mother-in-law, Eleanor, would evolve into anything more than a formal bond, precisely as defined by the institution of marriage. When I exchanged vows with Daniel, her only son, 3 years prior, my expectations for his mother aligned perfectly with the common archetype of most mothers-in-law in contemporary society. I anticipated a woman who would be unfailingly polite, yet maintain a distinct distance, always willing to offer assistance, but occasionally expressing her opinions with a noticeable assertiveness. I mentally braced myself for a relationship where mutual respect formed the bedrock. But deep intimacy was certainly not a prerequisite. Society often paints a rather complex picture of the daughter-in-law and mother-in-law dynamic, frequently suggesting an undercurrent of subtle rivalry or, at the very least, a pervasive sense of reserve. I envisioned myself as part of this majority, maintaining a safe and professional distance, diligently avoiding any unnecessary friction or emotional entanglement. My expectations were limited to regular family gatherings, pleasant but superficial small talk, and never dared to include the sharing of intimate secrets or moments of profound vulnerability. Eleanor, it seemed, shared a similar perspective, and in my mind, this arrangement was perfectly acceptable. We operated under an unspoken understanding of our respective boundaries, a tacit agreement to keep things at a tolerable level without demanding too much emotional investment. This comfortable, pressure-free setup suited both of us, or so I believed at the time. Throughout the initial year of our marriage, my careful predictions proved to be remarkably accurate. The relationship between Eleanor and me maintained a delicate equilibrium, characterized by an impeccable politeness that, nonetheless, lacked any genuine warmth. Our family dinners were meticulously orchestrated affairs, with conversations safely confined to innocuous, generalized topics such as the weather, the latest news headlines, or upcoming holiday plans. We exchanged birthday gifts that were always thoughtfully chosen, each one perfectly wrapped and presented with a polite, almost practiced, smile. Afternoon teas occasionally took place, but these were largely quiet moments, devoid of any profound confessions or deeply personal anecdotes. Every interaction was carefully maintained at a respectful distance, an invisible pane of glass separating us from truly understanding one another. There was nothing overtly intimate, nothing excessively personal, and I had come to accept this as an inherent part of my new role within Daniel's family. I had learned to adapt to this rhythm, interpreting it as a manifestation of mutual respect. Although deep down, I harbored a vague yearning for something more profound, a stronger, more authentic connection, but I never dared to articulate such a desire. However, a significant event soon unfolded, irrevocably altering the trajectory of our lives. Daniel received an extraordinary career opportunity, a position he had long coveted, but it necessitated our relocation to a different city, far removed from our hometown and immediate family. This decision was far from easy. We were compelled to leave behind familiar faces, cherished local eateries, and, perhaps most significantly, the intimate weekly family dinners that Eleanor consistently hosted. This geographical shift was not merely about moving houses, it represented a profound restructuring of our entire social and emotional framework. The initial sense of detachment from our family, especially from Eleanor, felt particularly heavy. I pondered whether the distance would further cool our already fragile relationship, or if, perhaps, it might inadvertently create a new space for us to redefine our connection. We navigated the challenging initial days, grappling with the unfamiliarity of our new surroundings, but gradually, we began to adjust. The new city, with its bustling energy and myriad possibilities, brought with it fresh opportunities, new challenges, and the promise of a truly new beginning. That process of adaptation was certainly not without its own distinct set of difficulties. We found ourselves having to rebuild every aspect of our lives from the ground up, searching for a new home, painstakingly discovering new routes and neighborhoods, and diligently striving to cultivate a new social circle. The initial days in this unfamiliar city were permeated by a pervasive sense of loneliness and an aching homesickness. I distinctly recalled those serene weekend mornings spent with Eleanor, even if our conversations were merely superficial. They offered a comforting sense of stability. Now, the geographical distance had created a void that was not only physical but also deeply emotional. Phone calls and text messages, no matter how frequent, simply could not replicate the warmth and comfort of direct presence. The palpable sense of loss for what had once been familiar weighed heavily, an invisible burden on both Daniel's and my shoulders. We found solace and strength in leaning on each other, yet both of us acutely felt the absence of our extended family. This seismic shift, though undeniably essential for Daniel's burgeoning career, had inadvertently fostered a subtle sense of isolation, making me realize that, despite our relationship with Eleanor never having been overtly intimate, her quiet presence in our lives had always been a crucial, albeit unspoken, pillar of our family's support system. 6 months after our significant relocation to the new city, on a rather serene afternoon, the telephone rang. It was Eleanor. Her voice, though still retaining its characteristic enthusiasm, carried an unusual undertone of weariness as she announced her plans to visit us for a couple of weeks. This news filled Daniel with unrestrained excitement. He had genuinely missed his mother's presence. And I too, could not deny that I had gradually grown fond of Eleanor, even though our relationship still leaned heavily towards polite courtesy rather than genuine warmth. Perhaps, the intervening distance had softened my heart, prompting me to begin recognizing the intrinsic value of family presence, even if it hadn't yet reached the level of intimacy I had once envisioned. The thought of her impending visit brought with it a gentle sense of anticipation. I started to mentally plan various activities we could enjoy together, envisioning the local attractions I could introduce her to. A subtle shift had occurred within me, an unspoken opening, allowing me to perceive Eleanor not solely as my mother-in-law, but as a cherished member of the family whom I had progressively learned to appreciate. At least to a certain extent, this visit, I mused, promised to be an invaluable opportunity to bridge the existing gap and, just possibly, forge a new beginning. Upon Eleanor's arrival, from the very first glance, I noticed something distinctly unusual about her. She appeared considerably more fatigued than during our previous encounters. Her typically vibrant energy levels were noticeably lower. Her shoulders carried a slight slump, and a palpable weariness seemed to envelop her entire being. She even casually mentioned experiencing persistent aches in her back and shoulders, attributing them to the long journey. Although she endeavored to maintain her usual optimistic and resilient demeanor, the visible signs of exhaustion etched upon her face and subtly conveyed through her gestures were impossible to conceal. Eleanor, the woman I had always perceived as brimming with vitality and meticulously put together, now exuded an almost indefinable fragility. This observation stirred within me a gentle wave of concern. I wondered if it was merely temporary travel fatigue or if something more serious might be at play. My natural nurturing instincts surged, a compelling urge to assist her, to ensure she felt utterly comfortable and well cared for during her stay. Eleanor's arrival, despite her apparent weariness, still brought a profound sense of joy, and I resolved to do everything within my power to make her visit as pleasant and restful as possible. I gently inquired if Eleanor had consulted a doctor, expressing my genuine concern. However, she merely waved off my worries with a light laugh, attempting to downplay my apprehension. "Oh, it's nothing, Clara, just age catching up, you know," she said, her tone sounding reassuring yet her eyes holding a faint, distant quality. She had always been a strong, independent woman, disinclined to complain or openly display vulnerability. This characteristic only served to amplify my underlying worries. I knew she often had a tendency to dismiss minor health issues, deeming them unworthy of concern. Nevertheless, I silently resolved to keep a discreet eye on her. I observed her movements, how she sat down and stood up, meticulously searching for any subtle indications of genuine discomfort. Despite Eleanor's reluctance to admit it, I sensed that something deeper was transpiring within her. I didn't wish to upset her by continually probing, yet I couldn't entirely dismiss my growing unease. My only hope was that this visit would afford her the much-needed opportunity to rest and recuperate, and that her aches and pains were merely temporary, not harbingers of a more significant issue she was diligently attempting to conceal from everyone around her. One particular afternoon, after Daniel had departed for work and I was tidying up the kitchen, Eleanor entered the room with a soft, gentle smile gracing her lips. "Clara," she began, her voice unusually subdued, almost a whisper, "would you mind giving me a quick massage? Just my shoulders and back? They've been so incredibly tight lately." I was genuinely taken aback, not because the request itself was inappropriate, far from it, but rather because we had never previously shared that particular level of intimacy. Our relationship had always been maintained at a certain respectable distance, and such a personal request was entirely unprecedented. My heart quickened slightly, a curious blend of surprise and a touch of awkwardness. This represented a new boundary, an unexplored territory within the landscape of our connection. I briefly considered politely declining, but upon seeing the hopeful, yet subtly tired, expression in her eyes, I simply couldn't bring myself to do it. A powerful urge to help surged within me, a sense of responsibility and empathy rising to the surface. This request, though seemingly simple, carried a profound significance, an unspoken invitation for us to draw closer, to dismantle the invisible wall that had long existed between us. It was a defining moment, a potential turning point. Despite my initial surprise, I nodded immediately. Of course, Eleanor, I replied, setting aside the dish towel I had been holding. I didn't hesitate, even though a faint flicker of apprehension about this sudden shift in our relational dynamic lingered in my mind. We moved together to the living room, where she settled onto the couch and leaned slightly forward, clearly exposing her stiff shoulders and back. Her gaze conveyed a mixture of anticipation and trust that I hadn't witnessed before. I sensed a subtle alteration in the atmosphere, a softening of the invisible distance that typically separated us. This was not merely a physical request, it was an invitation to greater proximity. A quiet breaking of the unspoken rules we had previously adhered to. I realized that this was a significant moment, an invaluable opportunity to build something deeper, a connection that both Eleanor and I might have unconsciously yearned for. Accepting her request was not just an act of kindness, it was an acknowledgement of a new facet of our relationship. A step into uncharted emotional territory, filled with both promise and a touch of trepidation. I retrieved some massage oil that I typically kept in our bathroom. A gentle, soothing blend with a subtle lavender scent, and warmed it in the palms of my hands. Once the oil reached a comfortable temperature, I began to gently work it into her shoulders,